The Great Hall of the Galactic Confederation buzzed with the voices of 847 different species. Ambassador Choi Hee-jin sat in the back row, in the section marked for silent species. Her chair was smaller than the others. The lighting was dimmer. Even the air recycling system seemed to work less efficiently in this forgotten corner of the chamber. She watched as the Vorthak delegate rose to address the council. His crystalline exoskeleton caught the light and threw rainbow patterns across the walls. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of a species that controlled 300 star systems. The mining operation on Kepler 442b has been completed, the Vorthak announced. The rebellious elements have been eliminated. Order has been restored. Scattered applause echoed through the hall. Ambassador Choi felt her stomach turn. She knew what rebellious elements meant. It meant families. It meant children. It meant people who had simply wanted to keep more of what they mined from their own world. She stood up slowly. Her legs felt heavy. "I request permission to speak." The chamber fell silent. Then came the whispers. Then came the laughter. A few species made clicking sounds that Choi had learned meant amusement. Others flashed colors that indicated mockery. The council speaker, a tall being with 6 arms and skin like polished metal, looked down at her with what might have been pity. "The silent species may speak, but we remind the chamber that their words carry no voting weight." Choi's face burned with shame, but she pressed on. "The mining world you speak of, it had families, children. Were they given a chance to surrender?" The Vorthak delegate turned his massive head toward her. His eyes were like black diamonds. "Silent One, your species understands so little of galactic affairs. Sometimes difficult decisions must be made for the greater good. But the children, we're part of a system that threatened Confederation stability." The Vorthak's voice carried finality. "Your concern is noted and dismissed." More laughter rippled through the chamber. Ambassador Choi sat down, her hands shaking. She had been Earth's representative for 12 years. In all that time, she had never successfully changed a single vote, never stopped a single injustice. She was window dressing, a token that let the Confederation claim they represented all sentient life. 3,000 light-years away, Captain Lee Daeho watched the same mining world through the view screen of his ship. The quiet dawn hung in the shadow of an asteroid, invisible to the Confederation sensors that swept the system. Its hull was designed to look like scrap metal. Its energy signature was carefully masked to appear like natural background radiation. "Captain," Dr. Park Sojin called from her station, "I'm reading massive energy discharges from the planet's surface. The Vorthak ships are still firing." Lee's jaw tightened. "Any survivors?" "Scanning now." Park's fingers danced across her console. "I'm detecting—" "Wait." Her voice grew quiet. "Captain, there are human life signs down there." The bridge fell silent. Lee felt the blood drain from his face. "How many?" "At least 3,000. Maybe more. They're concentrated in the mining settlements." Park looked up at him, her eyes wide with horror. "Sir, they're civilians. Families who came here to work the mines." Lee's communications officer, Lieutenant Nam Kiho, spoke up. "Captain, I'm intercepting transmissions from the surface. They're calling for help. They're asking why no one is answering." On the main screen, the Vorthak dreadnoughts continued their bombardment. Massive plasma bolts fell like rain, turning buildings to glass and people to ash. Lee could see escape pods launching from the mining stations, only to be picked off by Vorthak fighters like clay pigeons. "Sir," his weapons officer said quietly, "we could stop this. Our particle cannons could disable their entire fleet in minutes." Lee closed his eyes. He thought of the orders he carried, sealed and signed by the highest authorities on Earth. Never reveal humanity's true capabilities. Never break cover. Never let them know what humans could really do. "Sir, please," Dr. Park whispered. "Those are our people down there." "I know what they are," Lee said, his voice heavy with pain. He opened his eyes and looked at his crew. They were good people, young people who had volunteered for the most difficult mission in human space. They had spent 2 years watching and learning, gathering intelligence while pretending to be harmless explorers. Now they had to watch their own species die. "All stations, maintain communication silence," Lee ordered. "We observe only." The bridge crew turned back to their stations, but Lee could feel their anger. He could feel his own anger building like pressure in his chest. On the screen, another escape pod exploded in a ball of fire. Lieutenant Nam looked up from his station. Captain, the Vorthak commander is broadcasting to the settlements. He's giving them 1 hour to surrender all weapons and submit to processing. What does processing mean? Asked the helmsman. Dr. Park's voice was barely a whisper. According to Confederation records, processing means execution of all adults and relocation of children to Vorthak educational facilities. Lee's hands gripped the arms of his command chair until his knuckles went white. Below them, human children were about to become slaves. Human families were about to be torn apart, and he could do nothing. His secure communicator chimed. The signal was from Earth, transmitted through a network of hidden relay stations that the Confederation couldn't detect. Lee walked to his ready room and activated the encryption protocols. The face that appeared on his screen belonged to Commander Kim Tae-woo, head of the Human Defense Initiative. Kim looked tired. He looked old, but his eyes burned with a cold fire that Lee had never seen before. Captain Lee, Kim said without preamble, we've been monitoring the situation at Kepler 442b. I know what you're seeing down there. Sir, there are 3,000 humans on that world. The Vorthak are going to kill them all. I know. Kim's voice was steady, but Lee could hear the pain underneath. We've received similar reports from 6 other systems. The Vorthak are calling it Operation Clean Sweep. They're eliminating what they call problematic populations throughout their territory. Lee felt sick. How many? Conservative estimate? 50,000 humans across all targeted systems, maybe more. The number hit Lee like a physical blow. 50,000 people, 50,000 lives that could be saved if humanity just revealed what it really was, what it had really become during 2 centuries of hiding. Sir, Lee said carefully, our orders are to maintain the masquerade at all costs. But if we can save those people, Captain, I need you to listen very carefully. Kim leaned forward, his face filling the screen. Your orders have not changed. You will maintain communication silence. You will not engage the Vorthak forces. You will observe and report only. Lee felt his heart sink. Yes, sir. However, Kim continued, and something in his tone made Lee look up. Things are about to change. The Shadow Council has been in emergency session for the past 18 hours. Admiral Ryu has been reviewing our deep space assets. Lee knew about Admiral Ryu Jae-sung, though they had never met. Ryu commanded humanity's hidden fleet, the ships that protected the 300 colonies the Confederation didn't know existed. He was a legend among the secret military, a man who had spent 30 years preparing for the day when humanity would have to reveal itself. Sir, are you saying... I'm saying that the time for silence may be coming to an end, Captain. Continue your mission. Watch and wait. But be ready for new orders. The transmission ended, leaving Lee alone in his ready room. Through the small porthole, he could see the fires burning on the planet below. In a few hours, those fires would be all that remained of 3,000 human lives. He thought about Ambassador Choi, sitting in her tiny chair in the back of the Confederation chamber, speaking for a species that everyone believed was weak and primitive. He thought about the children in the mining settlements, crying for parents who would never come home. Most of all, he thought about Admiral Ryu and the ships hidden in the dark between the stars. Ships that could end this slaughter in minutes if the order ever came. On the bridge, Dr. Park's voice carried through the intercom. Captain, the bombardment has stopped. The Vorthak are sending down ground forces. Lee took a deep breath and returned to his command chair. He would follow his orders. He would watch and wait. But somewhere in the depths of space, he knew that humanity's greatest secret was stirring. The sleeping giant was beginning to wake up, and when it finally opened its eyes, the galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Ryu Jae-sung stood before the largest window in the Shadow Command Center, watching the construction of humanity's newest fleet. The massive shipyard stretched for hundreds of kilometers in all directions, hidden in the dark space between the Centauri systems. Thousands of workers moved like ants across the hulls of ships that would never appear on any Confederation database. The door behind him opened with a soft hiss. Professor Yoon Mi-kyung entered, carrying a datapad that glowed with classified information. Her face was pale from too many sleepless nights in the research labs. Admiral, she said quietly, Project Sleipnir is complete. Ryu turned from the window. After 30 years of military service, he had learned to hide his emotions. But today something flickered in his eyes. Show me! The holographic display in the center of the room activated. A ship appeared in the air between them. rotating slowly so they could see every detail. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. The hull was a deep black that seemed to absorb light. Strange patterns flowed across its surface like living metal. The Retribution, Professor Yoon said. Length 4 kilometers. Crew capacity 300 armament. She paused. Admiral, this ship could destroy an entire Confederation battle group by itself. Ryu walked around the hologram, studying every line. Tell me about the armor. Adaptive plating based on nanoscale reconstruction. It learns from every attack and builds immunity. Energy weapons become useless after the first few hits. Kinetic weapons are absorbed and their energy recycled into our power systems. Weapons, zero-point energy cannons that ignore conventional shields. Quantum torpedoes that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. And the crown jewel? Professor Yoon smiled for the first time in weeks. AI-guided defense drones that evolve their tactics in real time. Ryu nodded slowly. 200 years of secret development had led to this moment. 200 years of hiding humanity's true capabilities while the galaxy treated them like children. It had all started with a mistake. The memory played in Ryu's mind like an old film. He had been a young lieutenant then, serving aboard the exploration ship New Sol, when humanity made first contact with the Galactic Confederation. Earth's leaders had been excited. Finally, they would join a community of intelligent species. They would share knowledge and explore the universe together. The meeting had taken place in neutral space with representatives from 12 different species. Earth had sent their newest ship, equipped with the most advanced technology they could build. They wanted to make a good impression. They made an impression, all right. When the Confederation ships opened fire during what was supposed to be a peaceful weapons demonstration, the New Sol defended itself. Its experimental shielding systems deflected attacks that should have destroyed it instantly. Its weapons punched through alien armor like paper. In 30 minutes, the young human ship had disabled an entire Confederation escort fleet. The silence that followed had lasted for 3 days. When the Confederation finally responded, their message was simple. Submit or be destroyed. Earth's leaders had faced an impossible choice. They could fight a war against 800 alien species with their handful of ships, or they could find another way. Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's greatest strategist, had proposed the unthinkable. We surrender, she had said. We pretend to be primitive. We let them think we got lucky, and we use their underestimation to learn everything we can about them. The plan had worked better than anyone dared hope. For 200 years, humanity had played the role of the backward species. They built ships that looked crude but hid advanced technology. They established colonies that appeared to be struggling outposts but were actually thriving cities. They sent explorers who seemed to be bumbling around space but were actually mapping every Confederation military installation. Most importantly, they learned. They studied alien technology and improved it. They analyzed alien tactics and found weaknesses. They watched alien politics and discovered corruption. And they waited. The door to the command center opened again. Agent Han Dong-min walked in, still wearing the disguise that let him move freely through Confederation space. To any alien observer, he looked like a simple human traitor, barely worth noticing. Admiral, Han said, I have a report from the capital. Ryu gestured for him to continue. Han had spent 15 years undercover in the Confederation's intelligence network. His information had prevented 3 major wars and saved countless lives. The Vorthak are calling it the final cleansing, Han said. They've convinced the Council that certain systems pose a threat to galactic stability. They have authorization to use any force necessary. How many systems? Professor Yoon asked. 17. All of them have significant human populations that the Confederation doesn't know about. Han's voice was grim. Conservative estimate, 200,000 civilians. The number hit the room like a physical force. 200,000 people, families who had worked for generations to build new homes among the stars, children who had never even seen Earth. General Bae Soo-jin, Director of Human Special Operations, spoke from her chair at the conference table. Our intelligence suggests the Vorthak suspect something. They're not just targeting random systems. They're targeting our hidden colonies. Ryu felt a chill run down his spine. How much do they know? Unknown. But Admiral, if they've discovered even one of our colonies, it's only a matter of time before they find the others. Before they find Earth. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. If the Confederation discovered humanity's deception, there would be no mercy. 800 alien species would unite to destroy the race that had fooled them for 2 centuries. Professor Yoon cleared her throat. Admiral, the Retribution is ready for deployment. We could launch within 12 hours. 1 ship against the entire Confederation? General Bay shook her head. It's suicide. Not 1 ship, Ryu said quietly. 1 message. He walked to the tactical display and activated the galactic map. Red dots marked Confederation military bases. Blue dots showed human colonies. The red dots outnumbered the blue by 1,000 to 1. For 200 years we've hidden our strength, Ryu continued. We've let them believe we're weak because we thought it was safer. But safety bought with the blood of innocents is no safety at all. He turned to face his senior staff. These were the people who had dedicated their lives to protecting humanity's greatest secret. They had sacrificed everything to maintain the illusion of weakness. The Vorthak fleet will reach the first target system in 60 hours, Ryu said. They expect to find a small mining colony with basic defenses. Instead, they're going to meet the Retribution. Agent Han leaned forward. Sir, if we reveal our capabilities now, every species in the Confederation will unite against us. We'll face overwhelming numbers, will we? Ryu asked. Or will we face 800 species who suddenly realize they've been lied to for 2 centuries? Species who might start asking what else they don't know about the galaxy? Professor Yoon understood first. You want to shatter their confidence. Make them question everything they think they know. More than that, Ryu's voice carried the weight of command. I want to remind them that the universe is a big place, and that there are things in the dark between the stars that they never bothered to look for. General Bay stood up. Admiral, this is the point of no return. Once we do this, we can never go back to hiding. Good. Ryu's voice was cold as space. I'm tired of watching our people die while we lurk in the shadows. I'm tired of Ambassador Choi sitting in that chamber, begging for scraps of dignity. I'm tired of pretending to be weak while bullies slaughter the innocent. He activated his personal communicator and spoke into it clearly. Captain Oh Seung-hwan, report to the flag bridge immediately. Within minutes, the door opened and a tall man in a black uniform entered the room. Captain Oh had served aboard secret ships for 20 years. He had fought pirates and slavers in the dark spaces where the Confederation never looked. His reputation among the hidden fleet was legendary. Captain Oh, Admiral Ryu said, you've been chosen to command the Retribution. Your mission is simple. Save our people. Show the galaxy what humanity really is. Captain Oh saluted. Sir, when do we launch? Ryu looked out the window at the massive ship floating in the construction bay. Its black hull seemed to pulse with contained power. In a few hours it would carry humanity's greatest secret into the light. Immediately, he said. The time for silence is over. Professor Yoon approached the window and stood beside the Admiral. Sir, what if they don't surrender? What if they decide to fight us anyway? Admiral Ryu watched as the Retribution's engines began to glow with ethereal blue light. The ship was waking up, preparing to carry humanity's message to the stars. Then they'll learn why we stayed hidden for so long, he said quietly. They'll learn that sometimes the most dangerous thing in the galaxy is the enemy you never saw coming. The Retribution began to move, sliding out of the construction bay like a predator emerging from its den. Its destination was a small system where Vorthak warships were preparing to murder innocent families. But its real destination was the future itself, where humanity would finally take its place among the stars. Captain Oh Seung-hwan walked through the corridors of the Retribution, feeling the ship respond to his presence. The walls themselves seemed alive, pulsing with a soft blue light that followed his footsteps. This was not just a warship. It was humanity's greatest achievement. 2 centuries of hidden science and engineering wrapped in a hull that could reshape the galaxy. Captain, Lieutenant Commander Song Ye-jin called from the weapons station. All systems are online and responding normally. The AI reports full integration with defensive networks. Oh nodded and settled into the command chair. Around him, 300 of humanity's finest worked at stations that would have seemed like magic to the Confederation. Chief Engineer Kang Jin-woo monitored power systems that drew energy from the fabric of space itself. Dr. Nam Yoon-soo analyzed alien communication patterns, preparing for humanity's first honest conversation with the galaxy in 200 years. Helm, set course for the Kepler 442 system. O ordered. Maximum stealth velocity. The Retribution slipped through space like a ghost. Its engines produced no heat signature. Its hull absorbed sensor waves instead of reflecting them. To any observer, the space around them was completely empty. "Captain," Dr. Nam said, turning from her station, "I'm monitoring Confederation communications. The situation is worse than we thought." The main screen flickered to life, showing intercepted transmissions from across the galaxy. O watched in growing horror as reports came in from 17 different systems. The Vorthak weren't just targeting military installations. They were systematically destroying anything that might harbor human populations. New Busan Colony. Dr. Nam read from her console. Population 30,000. Status: communications lost 4 hours ago. O felt his jaw tighten. New Busan had been humanity's first successful agricultural world. A place where families had worked for 3 generations to turn a barren planet into a garden. Now it was silent. "Tactical analysis," he ordered. Lieutenant Commander Song brought up the strategic display. Red icons marked Vorthak battle groups moving through space like a plague. Each group consisted of 12 dreadnoughts, 40 cruisers, and hundreds of fighters. Each group was capable of sterilizing an entire world. "Sir," Song said quietly, "they're not just attacking our hidden colonies. They're hitting every system that has even a small human presence. Trading posts, research stations, mining operations, they know," O realized. Somehow they figured out that humanity isn't what we pretend to be. Chief Engineer Kang looked up from his station. "Captain, if they know about our colonies, do they know about our technology?" It was the question that had haunted humanity's leaders for months. If the Vorthak had discovered the truth about human capabilities, this entire mission could be a trap. The Retribution might be flying into an ambush designed specifically to counter their advanced systems. "Unknown," O said, "but we're about to find out." The ship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. Immediately, the sensor stations erupted with activity. The system was crawling with Vorthak warships, far more than intelligence had predicted. "Sensor report," O demanded. 24 dreadnoughts, 80 cruisers, 300 fighters, the tactical officer reported. "Sir, that's twice the force we expected." On the main screen, Kepler 442b hung like a wounded jewel. The planet's surface was covered with fires where the bombardment had struck. But the most horrifying sight was the orbital platforms. The Vorthak had deployed planet-killer weapons, massive devices designed to crack a world's crust and boil away its atmosphere. "They're not just conquering the planet," Dr. Nam whispered. "They're going to destroy it completely." O studied the tactical display. The Vorthak fleet was arranged in a perfect defensive formation around the planet. Every approach route was covered by overlapping fields of fire. It was a textbook siege operation, designed to prevent any escape and destroy any rescue attempt. "Captain," Song said, "I'm detecting human life signs on the surface. Approximately 8,000 people in underground shelters." 8,000. O thought about the families huddled in those shelters, listening to the bombardment above and wondering why no one was coming to help them. They had no idea that humanity possessed ships like the Retribution. As far as they knew, their only hope was a Confederation rescue that would never come. "Communications," O ordered. "Open a channel to the Vorthak fleet. Full identification protocols." Dr. Nam's fingers danced across her console. "Channel open, sir." O stood up, straightening his uniform. What he was about to do would change the course of galactic history. There would be no going back after this moment. "Vorthak fleet, this is Captain Oh Seung-hwan of the Terran vessel Retribution. You are attacking civilian populations in violation of Confederation law. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The response came quickly. The voice belonged to High Admiral Vexthul, the Vorthak's most decorated military commander. His tone carried the arrogance of a species that had never known defeat. "Unknown vessel, identify yourself properly. There are no Terran ships in this system. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed as an enemy combatant." O looked around his bridge. His crew was ready. They had trained for this moment their entire careers. They knew that what happened in the next few minutes would echo across the galaxy for centuries. "High Admiral Vexthul," O said calmly.
"I am Captain Oh Seung-hwan of the Human Defense Fleet. The people on that planet are under our protection."
"This is your final warning." The silence that followed lasted exactly 30 seconds. Then High Admiral Vexthul's laughter echoed across the communication channel. "Human Defense Fleet?" Vexthul sounded genuinely amused. "The Silent Species has a defense fleet? Your entire race couldn't build a proper cargo hauler, much less a warship. Sir, the tactical officer reported. The Vorthak ships are targeting us. Multiple plasma cannon locks. O felt a moment of perfect calm settle over him. This was the moment humanity had been preparing for since the day they first met the Confederation. Everything that happened next would prove whether 2 centuries of hiding had been worth the cost. Dr. Nam, he said quietly, record this transmission for broadcast to all Confederation worlds. Recording. Sir O activated the ship-wide communications. His voice would be heard not just by his own crew, but by every intelligence network in the galaxy. Hi, Admiral Vexthal. You are about to learn something that the Confederation has forgotten. The universe is a very large place, and sometimes the things you think are weak are just waiting for the right moment to show their true strength. The Vorthak response came in the form of plasma fire. 12 dreadnoughts opened fire simultaneously, sending beams of energy hot enough to melt asteroids racing toward the Retribution. Each beam contained enough power to vaporize a city. The plasma struck the ship's shields and simply stopped. O watched the tactical display as the Retribution's adaptive armor analyzed the incoming energy, learned its frequency and composition, and began converting it to power. Within seconds, their energy reserves had increased by 30%. Impossible. High Admiral Vexthal's voice cracked across the communication channel. Lieutenant Commander Song, O said calmly, return fire. Target their weapons systems only. Show them what precision looks like. Song's hands moved across her console with practiced precision. The Retribution's weapons systems were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. 0-point energy cannons that could punch through any known shield. Quantum torpedoes that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. But most impressive of all were the hunter drones. Thousands of small craft poured from the Retribution's launch bays, each one guided by an AI that could learn and adapt faster than any organic mind. They moved through space like a living cloud, dodging Vorthak fire while striking with surgical precision. Within minutes, half the Vorthak fleet was disabled. Not destroyed. O had given specific orders to minimize casualties. The drones had targeted weapon systems, engines, and communication arrays. The mighty Vorthak warships drifted helplessly through space, their crews unharmed but utterly defeated. This is impossible. High Admiral Vexthal transmitted again. Our intelligence report said humans were a primitive species. Your technology is centuries beyond anything in Confederation space. O smiled grimly. Admiral, your intelligence reports were exactly what we wanted them to be. On the main screen, the planet-killer weapons were powering down as the hunter drones swarmed over them. The massive devices that could have cracked a world apart were being carefully dismantled by machines smaller than shuttlecraft. Captain, Dr. Nam reported, I'm receiving transmissions from human shelters on the planet's surface. They're asking who we are. O felt his heart clench. Those people had spent their entire lives believing that humanity was weak and defenseless. They had no idea that ships like the Retribution existed, hidden in the dark between the stars. Open a channel to the surface, he ordered. The face that appeared on the screen belonged to a young woman covered in dust and debris. Behind her, O could see families huddled together in what looked like a mining tunnel. This is Dr. Lee Mi-young from New Seoul Mining Station, the woman said. Who? What ship is this? Are you Confederation Rescue? O looked into her eyes and saw the hope there. The news of humanity's victory at Kepler 442 spread across the galaxy like wildfire. In the great halls of the Confederation capital, emergency sessions convened as species leaders tried to understand what they had just witnessed. The impossible had happened. The silent species had revealed technology that made the most advanced Confederation ships look like ancient relics. Commander Lim Sang-ho stood on the bridge of the Confederation observer ship Galactic Eye, watching the recordings for the 100th time. His crew was silent, their faces pale with shock. They had been sent to document what everyone expected to be a routine Vorthak operation. Instead, they had recorded the most significant military engagement in galactic history. Play it again, Lim ordered quietly. The holographic display showed the moment when 12 Vorthak dreadnoughts had opened fire on the single human ship. The plasma beams, each capable of melting through a kilometer of solid metal, had simply vanished into the Retribution shields. Then came the response. Thousands of small craft had poured from the human ship like angry insects. moving with impossible speed and precision. "Sir," his tactical officer said, "our analysis shows those drones were learning and adapting their attack patterns in real time." Each one became more effective as the battle progressed. Lim nodded grimly. As a military commander with 40 years of experience, he understood what he was seeing. This wasn't just advanced technology. This was technology that evolved during combat, becoming stronger with every attack it faced. "Communications," he ordered. "Send a priority message to Confederation Command. Classification: Galaxy Threatening Event." On the planet below, the evacuation was proceeding smoothly. Human transport ships had appeared as if from nowhere, their sleek hulls bearing no resemblance to the crude vessels that humanity officially possessed. Tactical Officer Jung Hee-young watched from the Retribution's bridge as 8,000 civilians were loaded aboard ships that could have been mistaken for works of art. "Captain," Jung reported, "the last transport is loaded. All human civilians are secure." Captain O nodded but kept his eyes on the tactical display. High Admiral Vexthal's remaining ships hung motionless in space, their weapons disabled but their sensors still active. He knew they were recording everything, analyzing every detail of human technology they could observe. "Sir," Lieutenant Commander Song said from her station, "I'm detecting hyperspace signatures at the edge of the system. Multiple contacts incoming." O felt his stomach tighten. "Identification?" "Vorthak reinforcements estimate 3 battle groups, 72 ships total." The bridge fell silent. The first engagement had been against a single Vorthak fleet. Now they faced 3 times that number, including ships from the Vorthak's elite guard units. These were the vessels that had conquered star systems and brought entire species to their knees. Dr. Nam looked up from her communications station, her face pale. "Captain, I'm intercepting transmissions between the incoming fleets. They're not here for a rescue operation. High Admiral Vexthal has declared this a matter of species survival." Oh, understood immediately. The Vorthak had built their reputation on being the strongest military force in the galaxy. If a single human ship could defeat their fleet so easily, it challenged everything they believed about themselves. "Sir," Jung said quietly, "should we withdraw? We've accomplished our mission." Oh looked at the tactical display, considering his options. The smart move would be to leave now, before the reinforcements arrived. They had saved the civilians and sent humanity's message to the galaxy. Mission accomplished, but then he thought about the other 16 systems under attack. Thousands of human families were still trapped on worlds where Vorthak fleets were carrying out their genocide. If he withdrew now, those people would die while he ran for safety. "Negative," O said firmly. "We stay and finish this." The Vorthak reinforcements dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. 72 warships arranged themselves in attack position, their hulls gleaming with the scars of a dozen conquests. At their head flew the Destroyer of Worlds, High Admiral Vexthal's personal dreadnought, a ship that had been present at the fall of 3 different civilizations. "Human vessel." Vexthal's voice crackled across the communication channels. "You have humiliated the Vorthak hegemony for the last time. Surrender immediately and your death will be swift." O stood up from his command chair, straightening his uniform. Around him, his crew prepared for what would either be humanity's greatest victory or its most devastating defeat. "High Admiral," O replied calmly, "you attacked our civilians. You came to our space with weapons of genocide. Now you want to threaten us?" He paused, letting his words sink in. "You really don't understand what you're dealing with, do you?" The response came in the form of concentrated fire from every ship in the Vorthak fleet. Plasma cannons, particle beams, and quantum torpedoes all struck the Retribution simultaneously. The combined firepower was enough to crack the crust of a planet. The Retribution absorbed it all. Jung watched her tactical display in amazement as the ship's adaptive armor learned from each new type of weapon. Plasma fire was converted to energy. Particle beams were deflected harmlessly into space. Quantum torpedoes simply vanished as the ship's shield shifted into dimensions the Vorthak couldn't even detect. "Sir," Chief Engineer Kang reported, "our power levels are at 140% of normal. The enemy fire is actually making us stronger." O smiled grimly. This was what 200 years of secret development could accomplish. Humanity had studied every weapon in Confederation space, analyzed every defensive system, and built countermeasures for technologies that hadn't even been invented yet. "Lieutenant Commander Song," O ordered, "return fire. Show them what we learned from studying their weapons. Song's hands moved across her console with deadly precision. The Retribution's main guns spoke for the first time in the battle, sending streams of coherent energy across space. But these weren't ordinary energy weapons. They were phase-shifted beams that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, making conventional shields useless. The first Vorthak dreadnought simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, bristling with weapons and armor. The next moment there was only empty space and a cloud of dispersing particles. High Admiral Vexthal's voice cracked across the communication channels. Impossible. Our shields should have... His words were cut off as the hunter drones launched again. This time there were twice as many as before. The Retribution's manufacturing bays had been working constantly, building new drones that incorporated lessons learned from the previous battle. Jung watched in fascination as the drones adapted their tactics in real time. They learned from each Vorthak countermeasure, evolved new strategies, and shared their knowledge with the entire swarm. It was like watching evolution compressed into minutes instead of millennia. "Captain," Dr. Nam called out, "I'm receiving transmissions from across the galaxy. Every major species is monitoring this battle." Oh wasn't surprised. Word would have spread quickly after the first engagement. Now the entire Confederation was watching to see if humanity's victory had been a fluke or a demonstration of genuine power. The battle raged for 20 minutes. The Vorthak fleet, veteran of 100 conquests, threw everything they had at the single human ship. They used weapons that had never failed them before. They employed tactics that had crushed species with millions of years of military experience. Nothing worked. The Retribution moved through their formations like a predator among prey. Its weapons found targets that thought themselves safe behind shields and armor. Its defenses turned the Vorthak's own attacks into fuel for counterstrikes. One by one, the Vorthak ships fell silent. "Sir," Jung reported, "the enemy fleet is disabled. No casualties detected, but all weapons and propulsion systems are non-functional." Oh looked at the tactical display. 72 Vorthak warships drifted helplessly through space, their crews alive but utterly defeated. The most feared military force in the galaxy had been neutralized by a single human vessel. "Open a channel to High Admiral Vexthal," O ordered. The face that appeared on the screen was a study in defeat. Vexathal's crystalline features, once radiating arrogance and power, now showed something that O had never expected to see in a Vorthak leader. Fear. "Captain O," Vexthal said quietly. "What? What are you?" O considered the question. What was humanity? They were a species that had spent 2 centuries pretending to be weak, while becoming the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. They were explorers who had colonized hundreds of worlds in secret. They were protectors who had just demonstrated that they could defend the innocent against impossible odds. "We're what happens when you underestimate the quiet ones," O said simply. On his communication station, Dr. Nam was monitoring transmissions from across the galaxy. Reports were flooding in from every major species, every intelligence network, every military command structure. The impossible had been witnessed by thousands of observers. "Captain," she said, her voice filled with awe, "I'm receiving surrender requests from Vorthak fleets in 6 other systems. They're abandoning their operations." O felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The genocide had stopped, not just here but across all 17 targeted systems. President Shin Dae-jung stood before the assembled Galactic Confederation Council, looking out at the faces of 847 different species. For the first time in 2 centuries, the human representative was not sitting in the back corner reserved for silent species. Instead, she stood at the central podium, the position reserved for major galactic powers. The chamber was silent except for the hum of translation devices. Every being in the vast hall was staring at the woman who represented a species they had thought they understood. Behind her, holographic displays showed images that had shattered their assumptions about the galaxy itself. Fleet Admiral Cha Young-soo watched from the observation deck as President Shin prepared to address the council. His main battle group hung in orbit above the Confederation capital, hundreds of ships that made even the Retribution look small. When the Confederation had requested a diplomatic meeting, humanity had decided to arrive in force. "Honored members of the Galactic Confederation," President Shin began, Her voice carried to every corner of the vast chamber by advanced translation systems. My name is President Shin Dae-jung, and I represent the United Earth Government and its associated colonies. A ripple of movement went through the chamber. Several species activated their recording devices. Others began urgent whispered conversations with their advisors. I stand before you today to reveal a truth that my species has hidden for 200 years, Shin continued. When humanity first encountered the Confederation, we were told to submit or be destroyed. We chose a third option. We chose to survive. Elder Diplomatic Korth leaned forward in his ancient seat. As the oldest member of the Council, he had been present during humanity's original first contact. He remembered the confusion and fear when human ships had demonstrated impossible capabilities, then mysteriously seemed to lose them. For 2 centuries, President Shin said, humanity has maintained the fiction that we are a primitive species. We accepted the designation of silent species. We sat in the back of this chamber and pretended to be grateful for scraps of dignity. She gestured to the holographic displays, which began showing images of human colonies, vast cities built into asteroids, agricultural worlds that fed billions, industrial centers that produced technology beyond Confederation understanding. In reality, humanity controls 412 star systems. Our population exceeds 50 billion citizens across the galaxy. Our industrial capacity is larger than that of any 3 Confederation species combined. The chamber erupted in noise. Delegates shouted questions in dozens of languages. Some species looked angry at the deception. Others looked afraid of what this revelation meant for the balance of galactic power. Ambassador Choi Hye-jin watched from her new seat in the front row, tears streaming down her face. For 12 years she had endured humiliation and dismissal, while representing what everyone thought was a weak and primitive species. Now she understood that every insult had been directed at the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. President Shin waited for the chamber to quiet down before continuing. We hid our true nature because we learned something important during our first contact with the Confederation. We learned that strength without wisdom leads to tyranny. We learned that the biggest bully is not always the strongest. Diplomatic Corps Leader An Jae-won stood from his seat in the human delegation. Unlike Ambassador Choi, he was not a victim of the masquerade. He was one of its architects, a master strategist who had spent decades planning for this moment. The Vorthak hegemony learned this lesson 3 days ago, Anne said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. Their fleets encountered a single human vessel in the Kepler 442 system. The result was the complete neutralization of their forces without the loss of a single life. High Admiral Vexthal sat in the Vorthak delegation, his crystalline features showing none of their usual arrogance. The proud warrior who had conquered entire systems now looked like a broken old soldier. His defeat at the hands of the Retribution had destroyed more than his fleet. It had shattered his understanding of galactic power. The human ship absorbed our weapons fire and converted it to energy, Vexthal said quietly when called upon to testify. Their defensive systems learned from our attacks and became immune to them. Their offensive capabilities were beyond anything in our experience. Chief Scientist Ko-in-A rose from her seat and approached the central podium. She carried with her a data device that contained humanity's greatest secret. Honored delegates, Ko said, humanity offers to share the technology that allowed us to achieve these capabilities, not as a weapon but as a tool for the betterment of all galactic civilization. The chamber fell completely silent. The idea that the humans would voluntarily share their technological advantages was unprecedented in galactic politics. Species had fought wars for centuries over far less significant advances. Ko activated her device and new images appeared on the holographic displays. Adaptive algorithms that could learn and evolve in real time, energy systems that drew power from quantum fluctuations, manufacturing techniques that could build ships as large as cities. This is our gift to the galaxy, Ko said. The knowledge that allowed us to grow strong while staying hidden. But it comes with conditions. Fleet Admiral Cha stepped forward from the observation deck. His uniform bore the insignia of humanity's true military might, ranks and decorations that spoke of battles fought in the dark spaces where the Confederation never looked. The first condition, Admiral Cha announced, is the complete restructuring of galactic governance. No longer will species be classified by their apparent technological level. No longer will the strong be permitted to prey upon the weak. He gestured to the Vorthak delegation. The recent genocide attempt against human civilians was not an isolated incident. Our intelligence networks have documented similar atrocities across the galaxy. This ends now. Several species began to protest, but their voices were drowned out by others who had suffered under the current system. The Mizari delegation stood as one, their feathered forms trembling with emotion. For 500 years they had been forced to surrender 70% of their agricultural output to more powerful neighbors. The second condition, President Shin continued, is the establishment of protection protocols for all sentient species. Every world, every colony, every settlement will be defended against aggression. Elder Diplomatic Korth spoke for the first time since the session began. President Shin, what you propose would require enforcement capabilities beyond anything the Confederation has ever possessed. President Shin smiled. Elder Korth, humanity has been enforcing these principles for 2 centuries. We have simply been very quiet about it. New images appeared on the displays. Pirate fleets destroyed in the darkness between stars. Slaver operations dismantled without fanfare. Aggressive species turned back from vulnerable worlds by ships that appeared from nowhere and vanished just as quickly. Every major pirate organization in the galaxy has lost ships to mysterious technical failures. Diplomatic Corps Leader Ann explained. Every slaver fleet has experienced equipment malfunctions at critical moments. Every species that has attempted genocide has found their weapon systems mysteriously sabotaged. The implications hit the chamber like a physical force. For 2 centuries, humanity had been the galaxy's silent guardian, protecting the innocent while maintaining the illusion of weakness. The third and final condition, President Shin said, is equality. No more silent species. No more second-class citizens. Every sentient being has a voice in galactic affairs. The Kethran delegate, whose species had been classified as silent for over 1,000 years, stood with tears flowing down his scaled cheeks. You would give us a voice? We would give everyone a voice, President Shin replied, including ourselves. The debate that followed lasted for 18 hours. Some species refused to accept the new order and announced their intention to form a coalition against humanity. Others embraced the changes immediately, recognizing the opportunity for a better galaxy. The coalition that formed against humanity consisted of 12 species, led by the remnants of the Vorthak Military Command. They assembled the largest fleet in galactic history, over 10,000 ships prepared to fight for the old order. They encountered humanity's true defensive capabilities when they approached the Sol system. Automated defense platforms, invisible until they activated, disabled the entire coalition fleet without firing a single shot. The ships simply stopped working, their crews unharmed but completely helpless. It was a demonstration of power so absolute that resistance became pointless. 6 months later, the new Galactic Accords were signed in the same chamber where humanity had once been dismissed as primitive. The Confederation was restructured as an egalitarian council, where every species had an equal voice. Military action required unanimous consent from a civilian oversight committee. Trade agreements were required to benefit all parties equally. Admiral Oh Seung-hwan, now promoted to command humanity's peacekeeping fleet, stood on the bridge of his new flagship. Through the viewports, he could see human and alien children playing together in the orbital parks above New Geneva Station.